Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. We're talk about your community, brought to you by Clocktower Advisors. I'm Todd, your host, and I am super glad you're able to join me today on this special episode. Actually, my guest here a couple of weeks ago, we had to do a little bit of a reschedule shuffle because of the release of what we're going to be talking about today, the Community Compendium. My guest is Mathijs Vleeming, who is from Open Social and does a lot of work in events management and associations. And I'm incredibly excited to have him on as a colleague today. He's an amazing guy. Absolutely love his work, and my interactions with Open Social actually over the years have been really terrific. I'm hoping that you're going to jump in with questions, comments, ideas, responses, and we'll be sure to give you the link so that you can download all of that. Before I bring him on screen, I just want to cover a little bit of just sort of announcements and things like that. If you didn't catch it yesterday, I was fortunate to be invited to be a guest, I think, on their very first webinar from Yuki, which is an online community platform, which is for heavily geared towards Web3 kinds of community setups. And they brought me on to talk a little bit about the concept of we-centric online communities, communities that create energized, loyal customers. It was an open discussion. I geared it pretty heavily towards the Web3 blockchain, DAO, DeFi world, but I think there's some generally useful things there. The link to it is posted up online on Yuki's company page if you follow them. I'm also going to repost it here, probably in the chat afterwards, if you're interested to check that out. Would love to see you check that out and give them a little love as well. The other announcement that I have is I'm very excited to be doing another live stream tomorrow, for which many of you have signed up. And my guest for that one is going to be Yulan Scolliers, who is with, I believe she's director of operations. She is with a company called CheckStep, which is an AI-assisted moderation platform that plugs into communities or social media networks, your Discord server, whatever the case happens to be. And it is incredible at being able to identify problematic posts or visuals that you want to be able to screen out of your community conversations. And it's really good at doing this and then surfacing anything that's a gray or edge case, and helping you as the community manager decide if you want to include it or exclude it from the conversation. So a very powerful third-party tool that can be plugged into a variety of different platforms. They're a startup organization, but they are actually making leaps and bounds in what they're doing, and I've been very happy to be with them and to work as an advisor for them. So join me tomorrow for that. That's going to be at our regular talk time for Talk About Your Communities at 11 a.m. U.S. Central Time. And it's going to be a fun discussion as well. But in the meantime, let's turn to Mathijs, who is on a mission to unleash the full power of communities with a purpose. Mathijs has 20 years of experience at the heart of professional community building in the International Association Meetings industry at ICCA. That's the International Congress and Convention Association. He joined Open Social, which is an open software as a service community platform specialized in mission-driven communities in early 2021 as an online community evangelist and strategy consultant. In his role, he's passionately preaching the gospel about the major opportunity for associations and other community-led and purpose-driven organizations and brands to increase their impact by empowering their members to share year-round. As a strategy consultant, he provides consultancy services to Open Social clients to help them create their online community strategy. And I can tell you, he's an amazing guy. I'm very happy to welcome him on the show. Mathijs, so great to see you. How are you today?
Hi, Todd. Wow, what a welcome. I feel like a rock star. Thank you.
You are a rock star, my friend.
Great to talk to you. I mean, I think we only talked a couple of times, but I feel we've known each other for a while. And thanks for your open spirit and for being so helpful.
I love having these conversations. It's I'm energized by every time I have somebody on the show who's doing work in the community space, and especially niching down in some area or another. I mean, your background and experience is incredible, And we already have some people jumping in on the channel here to say hello. Deb Shell, friend from Find Calm here, is on today. Hi, Deb. Great to see you. And Tanja Lab, a colleague and another community consultant friend who's, I think she's based in Germany. And she is actively involved with some things that I'm doing with International Community Day. So hello to all my friends out there that are involved with that as well. Yeah. Mathijs, how did you get involved in community? What's your origin story for the world? What is it that made you find yourself serendipitously in our world?
Okay, it's a bit of a long story, but and you touched on it quite a lot, I think, in your introduction. But no, indeed, I have a background and in the association meetings industry, and for about 20 years. And in the last 5 years, I was director of marketing at ICA, the International Congress and Convention Association, as you said. It is the global trade association for the international association meetings industry. So. Indeed, I would like to call that nowadays the professional community building industry, because at its heart, these associations are communities and community builders. The way that they are used to building their communities is through these association meetings. I mean, traditionally, since the 50s, 60s, when commercial jet craft came available, it was the way for people to connect and exchange knowledge. And we've seen this market grow in the last 50, 60 years, like exponential growth, because there was a need to meet, there was a need to connect, to exchange knowledge with this information revolution going on. And, all these new associations and research and scientific research going on. And there's a lot of progress there. So those are definitely a source for good. But and I think in that director marketing role for a large international association, I have always believed in the power of online community. And to be honest, this was always for an association a bit of a nice to have on the side, right? I mean, the way we do business is through events. They are used to doing it that way. It's the business model. It's the engagement model that their members are used to. It's the one time in the year that the association actually takes shape, right? It takes actual, factual shape. People are meeting each other. They're connecting with the association. The rest of the year is basically not a lot of engagement going on very often. It's quite flat, and we're talking pre-COVID here. So those engagement lanes are quite flat. So, but I've always believed in the power of online community. So we built quite an active community on social media for ICA, for its association members, which was nice. It's always hard to drive real value from that, right? It was always really good to build some excitement for events and grow event participation, and actually grow also the value that our members are getting from events by letting them prepare and meet with other participants beforehand. But still, it was not essential. I had on my roadmap for ICA actually itself as well to actually invest in an owned online community platform to service our member, because we were building a knowledge hub, for example. But it was all controlled from our head office. Was our marketing team that was like controlling all these useful, valuable content, blogs, resources, to share that centrally with all members. But it's of course much stronger if you enable your members to share that information directly with each other and you facilitate that sharing. So we had that on our radar. Then of course COVID happened, right? Natural move for an association was, I think, when we've seen it, to move from in-person events to virtual events. It's a natural move. We had to act quickly, right? I still think that's a short-term solution. It's not a long-term solution, because what's really counterproductive of an event platform is that you let all your members sign up to this platform to have this event, a couple of days event, often still. You build all this engagement, you consume all this content, you build all these connections, and then after the event is over, that event platform closes down usually a couple of weeks after, right? You still might have some sessions on demand, but you lose all these connections and all these engagements made. And in short, I've always believed in the power of online communities for associations. And then actually, when COVID happened, I ran into Open Social. I shared my thoughts about this on LinkedIn, actually, on a blog post. And I came in touch with Open Social. So Dutch-based, like you say, open SaaS, and specialized in mission-driven communities with a purpose, like the United Nations, like Greenpeace, but also associations like the International Seed Federation and International Aid Society. So it was sort of like a very natural match for me to, actually practice that belief that I have from this opportunity that was there, and power up and team up with Open Social to preach that gospel in my evangelist role. But also since then growing a bit into helping any Open Social client grow their or build their community strategy.
But and Open Social has grown up quite a bit in the past few years. My first encounter with them was back actually when I was working with Feverbee, 2015 or so, maybe 2016. And I interacted with them with the work that they did with Greenpeace. Of course, they did a number of community platforms actually based on country. I think at the time they had like 17 different instances of it rather than having a single. They were like all over the place.
I think they have 10 platforms now in all different languages.
So they've narrowed it down, but yeah, that's amazing. And I had a part in helping to build some of the training for their community managers on that. And then I worked directly with another Open Social customer, which was Pachamama Alliance, which helps with the rainforest, help to preserve the rainforest and indigenous peoples in those places. So another great purpose-built kind of association that's trying to affect social change and be champions of social justice. So at the time, I think it was Open Social was called something else. It was Gold Gorilla, right?
Indeed, Gold Gorilla, yeah.
Yeah.
That's where we originated from, indeed.
Yeah, which was an amazing name. But I like Open Social better. It's a little, a little less guerrilla, a little bit more friendly.
Yeah, more open.
So, yeah.
Now, of course, we focus on the open SaaS version where we do the full hosting and support and customer success and the full support on that side. But we are actually open source based as well. So we actually have the Drupal community behind us for quicker innovation and it's actually for the community by the community, as I sometimes would like to call it. So it's really in that case it's quite different, I think, from some of the other main community platforms that are out there that we are focusing. We have an open SaaS model.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. The only thing I can think of that would somewhat be similar would be maybe Buddy Boss or Peepso on the WordPress platform. But you guys have if I have the sense you guys have maybe a slightly more baked built experience, something that's a bit more mature than that.
No, indeed. We have huge clients like European Commission, United Nations, who help actually develop tools and new extensions for our platform, and that we are then sharing with any client and offering to other clients to use as well. And so that's how we do that. And we have huge growth plans and opportunities for these large mission-driven organizations. And indeed, we have proven to increase the impact of these communities with a purpose by these large organizations facilitating their community interaction on our platform.
So let's turn our discussion to the main event, the Community Compendium, which was that's a weighty name that you've attached to this publication. Can you talk a little bit about what spurred the idea and sort of what it's become? And I'm going to put the link up so that anybody can go and download it, because it's a free resource, right?
Indeed, it's a free resource. You only have to leave your email address, like is often the case with these things. But no, it's a free resource. Yeah, we call it the Association Community Compendium: How to Harness the Collective Power of Your Members. And actually, the original idea was to just create quite a relatively simple download guide, right? Like a 30-page guide or something. But this evolved into like over 100-page book that it became. And it's basically the result of my journey, I think, of the last 1.5 years from the events industry, from the association meetings industry, or the heart of the association meeting industry, as you know, my background at ICA, towards the community industry. Because I learned a lot about community building in the last 1.5, 2 years. And the more I learn about it, the more I see that the events industry, but specifically associations, can really learn a lot from the community industry and from some best practices from the community industry. And So what I tried to do in the book is actually combine some of those best learnings and best practices and examples of open social communities with a purpose, and actually elaborate on those and show the relevance to associations that are currently in a bit of a weird phase, right, where they are just about to go back to in-person events or not, and what does the future engagement model of these associations look like. And I think there is a huge opportunity for not only thinking in terms of events, but thinking in terms of community and online community, and where an own platform like Open Social can have huge answers to some of the challenges that are currently faced by these associations, like engagement, like how to attract a new generations of members to my association. How to actually build engagement in between events, because don't get me wrong, I still think in-person events mostly are major community drivers, are probably the main community drivers. There is, and I think the core message of the book is these events, these association events, they have a purpose outside of the meeting itself, right? These associations are organizing these events to contribute together to their mission, to share knowledge, to connect, right, to build connections between members. And I think the biggest power or the biggest value that you can offer as an association to your members is your ability to connect your members, right? Because at its core, every association started off as a community of people, of like-minded people with a joint interest, with a joint purpose, and trying to collaborate on reaching that purpose, on reaching that goal together. But what we see over the years is that a lot of associations have actually moved away from their core, being community, to being actually more almost corporate, like top-down communicators and top-down governed organizations, right? Where actually the only time in the year where you would actually facilitate bottom-up initiatives would be at this in-person event. I think what we are seeing, especially in the corporate world, is that the way in which we build communities are very different nowadays than they were many years ago. And so, in a way, a lot of corporates are very successfully building online communities to create value. And they are, in a way, starting to act like associations, right? They're becoming very community-driven. Often these communities that maybe start online are starting to organize in-person events as well, right? As an extension of their online community building. And on the other way, a lot of associations have started to act like corporations, where they are really communicating top-down throughout the year outside of their event. Through emailing and maybe some engagement on social media, but not really, being truly community-driven and community-led outside of those couple of days a year where they're connecting their members. And that's a shift to make. So from events to community.
So, and I love that perspective. And I've felt for ever since the start of COVID that it felt like events management and community have been converging or trying to converge. Now that maybe although we're in I think another surge right now, I think maybe some of the severity or the alarm around that has diminished.
Yeah.
And so a lot of events management organizations, a lot of associations have kind of gone back and they're thinking to say, well, we're going to come back in person. We don't need to worry as much about this online stuff anymore. How do you address that? How do you get that?
It seems that's happening indeed. I mean, luckily, of course, we can meet face to face again, right? And that's where the priority is to after 2 years often, or after one or 2 years when it was not possible to organize your in-person conference again, which makes a lot of sense. But if you are thinking long-term strategy, is it really? I don't think it's a sustainable strategy to rely on your community building efforts or your connecting your members solely on your in-person events. And there, of course, there are many reasons for that. We talked a bit about expectations of new generations, and I think a link to that and environmental pressures, of course. I'm not saying virtual events or virtual community will replace in-person events. Definitely not. But you can create like a continuous engagement layer around your in-person events, and actually to offer additional value and to keep on collaborating towards your purpose throughout the year. And this will make your events actually much more focused and much more better, probably, right? And in turn, that will also power your community and create some community engagement and community experience throughout the year. Not relying solely on events to create this engagement and collaboration towards your mission.
I love that language that you use, the continuous engagement layer around it, because I'll often talk to organizations about, if they have an annual event. I mean, it's a nice way to get people to jump into an online community. You have a sign up at the event, you get them to register, you can give them a little bit of a tour of the platform, like what use they can get out of it. And unlike a lot of the conference support apps, that whole market that's out there where the connections go away as soon as people stop using the app, at least with the community, you have something that goes on. It's a continuous engagement layer around that, where you can be talking about the event, uploading resources, continuing conversations, fostering connections after the event happens, as well as you're leading up to the next event, putting out provisional agendas, giving sneak peeks, doing teasers, behind it. There's just an amazing amount of things. I don't understand why organizations wouldn't think in those terms.
It is, and to be honest, I was maybe a bit too positive and maybe a bit naive even in that I think, I really think this is a major opportunity for and addresses a lot of the challenges currently faced, and it's best of both worlds, right? Mm-hmm. But what it was amazing to see when COVID just hit, that within the association meetings industry, but also in the events industry in general, there were sometimes discussions about virtual will never replace face-to-face, right? Mm-hmm. No. It won't, but it's not like it's a non-discussion, right? It's not like it's a boxing match between in-person events and virtual events or virtual community. I mean, it's best of both worlds. They're complementary, and with online community, you make your in-person events better. And with your in-person events are a major opportunity to kick off and to build your online community and actually increase your capacity as an association for your members to collaborate, facilitate collaboration towards your mission, to increase your impact. And it's not, and increasing impact is what it's all about. That's why associations exist, right? They have this mission and they want to contribute to that. And there are more ways to do that. Like I said, the way in which we build community nowadays is much different than many years ago when it was solely in-person events. And but still, indeed, even though I do think some things have changed for good. I mean, during COVID, and it's now, luckily, it's almost over, it seems, knock wood somewhere here. But it was a hot topic. Community was a buzzword. I spoke with our partner association world at BOF and GOF and these association events. And a lot of these associations are actually agreeing on that online community is at the heart of their long-term strategy, but long-term. Right, and long term is quite difficult, something to address now, where the world is constantly changing, and we're now going back to in person, which they're focused now, and that makes sense, of course. But so it seems that it's a bit off the radar again. While I'm very convinced that if you talk long term strategy as an association, you are a community builder, you're not an event organizer, then online community and online community platforms should be at the core of your long term strategy. For some of the reasons I mentioned already, but there are many more, because in times of disruption, you cannot facilitate a top-down approach even as a board or as a leadership of an association. It's actually really good to have short feedback loops and distribute some responsibility and get your community to have some bottom-up initiatives to contribute and give input into where your association should be heading, which is very important, of course, in changing times and in times of disruption.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good message for association directors and leadership to be thinking about how having an online community builds additional resilience and feedback loops into an organization. Just that sense of depending on email communications and phone communications and in-person meetings, it's not frequent enough. But with the community, at least, you've got 24/7 feedback loop to be able to understand what the concerns are of your members, to be able to do it. I know, one of the reasons that Pachamama Alliance wanted to build an online community was that they didn't want to have to re-recruit volunteers every time they had another event that they were trying to get grassroots support for. This way, they were able to kind of keep a group engaged throughout the year, rather than having to do these recruitment spikes of activity and then have to re-recruit again every time there's something new. It saves effort and makes that organization a little bit more agile, a little bit more resilient over time.
Yeah, and it's also you get a more organic engagement with your members, right? Because if you had one event and you see that there are lots of attendance, lots of questions asked, maybe you can answer some of those questions after the event is taking place in the same community event place, right? In the same online platform. And that actually is very good input to maybe do a follow-up event, right? And then invite those same people. They were interested in that previous event, so let's invite them to the next one that's about the same topic, but it's a part 2. Right, more deep dive into the same topic. So that means you can, because you know who attended. It's your own platform. It's continuous. It's not like that platform is shut down once the event is taking place, right? So you know who's interested. So you can in a very relevant way, you can communicate to them. Say, well, you showed interest. Maybe you should attend this online event or in-person event, or read this report or this new blog post as well, which makes your communication much more engaging. Increases your engagement with your members. So it's really it's not just about community and just being social throughout the years. No, if you have an own platform and you own the data, you can be much more relevant in your communication to your members. So it's encompassing a lot of these aspects of what an association does. And that's why actually it turned, I think, into from a 30-page guide into a 100-page book, because there are many aspects like this which make it for me so much of a no-brainer almost, that online community and owned online community should be the long-term way forward for these associations.
No, that's absolutely terrific. So, Mathijs, we have a couple of questions here that I'll put up on the screen. I think Deb had shared a couple with us here. She says, what kind of interaction do you recommend working to cultivate between annual events for large conventions or conferences? I like that.
Yeah, what we see a lot is what we do is like simple things are ask me anything, right? If an online event or if an in-person event took place, we see a lot of interest in a certain speaker or in a certain topic. We address questions that might have not been answered during the event. We can do that afterwards. We can also do an ask me anything with one of these speakers and get that going. But we can also, based on that, we do follow-up events, right? If they want to say, well, this was an interesting topic, but now we would like to learn more about what's going on, about deep dive into certain items or things that were touched during this session. You can follow up on that, and not just with another event. You can also follow up on that with maybe a blog post by other experts on the same topic, with maybe finding relevant reports or trend reports and sharing that within the community. Getting other maybe external experts on board, because if your community is showing interest in a certain topic, serve that, again, to be relevant and live up to the needs of what your members are showing. But we also have, because we're talking very much events here, is other asynchronous tools like a ideation challenge, for example. If you see a certain challenge or a certain is shared within an event or within a session by a speaker, maybe there are different ideas or different thoughts or maybe potential solutions to a challenge that is posed within a session. And you can actually also not discuss this during a live event, but use an ideation tool for that, for example, where members can facilitate different solutions and they can maybe help work on each other's ideas and so on. And that's actually a very good reason, of course, to do a follow-up event maybe, and to keep that going, to keep that conversation going, because especially in associations, you're often you're sharing knowledge at an event, but it shouldn't be cut off after that's taking place. You want to make that a continuous process.
Yeah, no, it's a terrific set of ideas there. And then another question that came from Deb was, does an accreditation program make sense to take place inside a community for an association?
Yeah, that's a very interesting one, because that's, of course, what lots of associations do. And we see a lot of associations moving their certification or accreditation program online, indeed. But again, I think it depends a lot on what the program looks like and the type of education that you are doing. I think a lot of education you could actually do asynchronous online, right? If it's like theory or knowledge to consume, then why fly halfway around the world and listen to that, right? Maybe you could do that online. And actually, what we see a lot, and I like this model, is called the flip the classroom model. You probably heard of it, right? Because actually the least effective way for an audience to or for someone to learn is actually passively learning to a one-way speech, one direction speech, right? Which is actually the traditional way that knowledge is shared at a traditional association conference. Like you sit in the room and you listen to a 1.5 hour monologue in the back of the room, and that's actually a least efficient way to consume knowledge. The much more efficient way to consume knowledge and to learn is actually to discuss the knowledge that's just been shared with peers, maybe, right? In a workshop or something like that. So what we see is that, so for a certification program, you might want to do the passive consuming of the knowledge online, but then maybe continue that with an in-person workshop to round off the certification program. And of course, it makes a nice roundup to actually hand over the certificate in person as well, to celebrate the certificate being successfully fulfilled by your members. But so it could be a mix. But what we do see is a lot of online learning systems, learning management systems, because that can very easily often be done online. But I like the flip the classroom concept to think about maybe creating a mix of the two. Yeah. I think you're muted, or it's my sound.
Sorry, that was my fault. I didn't want to have my keyboard clacking overwhelm your voice there. Yeah, so I just put a link in the chat about a beginner's guide to the flipped classroom. So if somebody's interested in learning a little bit more,
asking if you heard about it.
Yeah. Excellent. So we've got a few minutes left here to chat. I'm wondering if there's some other areas of the compendium that you'd like to highlight, or some things that any colleagues you wanted to give a shout out to. Anything?
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely some people I want to mention who have helped a lot. I think first one is I think Mathijs Vleeming, I should mention. He's actually ex-CEO of ICA, so he was my boss, and now I hired him as an external advisor to help with the structure of the compendium and give some input on potential content gaps and so on. So that was a big help to help structure it. Another big help has been Kai Troll of Association World. They are the association relations partner of Open Social. So he's been really helpful in giving us the opportunity to actually discuss what we've been discussing directly with associations and how it could help for them. Because, mind you, for every association's position is different, and we very much also want to hear, can this actually be a solution for your specific association? That's also how we have set up the compendium. After each chapter, we're actually asking questions related to the content being discussed in that chapter and asking input. What are maybe some good examples of community-led initiatives within your association that others can learn from, to share and to include in future editions of the compendium? Because then we can learn from each other. So in a way, I try to have sort of a community approach to the compendium as well. Someone else to really thank is Marjorie Anderson, I think, from Community by Association. I'm referring to some of her work. I would have loved to collaborate a bit more on her with that, but we're all busy people, I think. She's doing great work in online communities for associations, because especially when I dived into a lot of the typical Millingtons and David Spink's theory of the community building world, I learned a lot from that, and I try to apply that to the association world, and it's quite a different situation, because the biggest challenge for most online communities is to build that community. Right, often from scratch, and the challenge for an association is often they have actually a really long history, and a community with a very long history, and actually the challenge is quite different. It's actually facilitating and amplifying that offline community online, and increasing that feeling of belonging and creating value through online interaction. Which is quite a different challenge because it's about really facilitating and amplifying instead of trying to create everything from scratch. And Marjorie Anderson is doing some really good groundwork there, I think, groundbreaking work. Lots of colleagues at Open Social to thank, and too many to mention now, I think. But yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so I definitely can appreciate that idea of you're not building a community from scratch. You're enabling an existing community to use the online space. And I wonder. I'm working with some associations or association-like entities, right now, and I'm engaged in doing some qualitative interviews with some of the members of some of the would-be members of those communities. Some are much, just like any kind of other community, some are much more prone to be socially active in online spaces. They're not accustomed to it. I'm finding, and I'm wondering if you sort of have this experience as well, maybe how you address it. There are others who they're not accustomed to going online. They're not accustomed to interacting in online discussions or collaborating. What do you do in those cases? Are you just doubling down on the individuals who are more social media committed, or do you recommend spending more time giving special training and onboarding to people that aren't as accustomed to interacting in those spaces? For me, it's always a question of what direction to go.
Yeah, this sounds very familiar, and it's also very much a generational thing I see, and often in associations you see more senior leaders that are active in associations, right? Because they are in that phase of their career often, and they are the active association members. But we do see a shift. Right, so we do in some active online association communities. It's often the younger generations being active, which is actually good because you have more inclusion. You have more members that otherwise, if they were not allowed because they don't have budget or something to attend your in-person event, you get them to at least also make use of their membership. I think how we usually start association communities online. Of course, communities of practice is what they mostly are. So we start with existing information needs. So existing working groups are often there, existing committees, existing experts that are sharing information, and I'm going to give them the responsibility to run a group, right? And to actually profile themselves in that way. So that's how we usually start, and we we include these as being like champions and like active like ambassadors, and show them, let them show the example behavior that you would like your community to show as well. And by doing that, you will involve, of course, the more online savvy members first. But by doing that also, and making sure what are the interests and the expertise areas that your members are interested in, showing the community activity to those other members, not just from content you've created, but your community members have created. And by doing that, being relevant and with interesting content, trying to get them to persuade to engage with that. And of course, as support, you can have tutorials and maybe onboarding events where you do a tour or a virtual tour of your new community space or something like that. That definitely always works. But you cannot, of course, force it with really force them to get active. So you have to persuade them, I think, and start with your active members and get them on board to help you persuade them and make it engaging and valuable enough for them to get along, and make it easy for them, of course. Yeah.
I think that's terrific insight. I really appreciate that, and I think it's relevant to so many of the communities of practice that I've seen over the years. So as we're winding things up here a little bit, is there anything else from the compendium that you'd like to highlight or show or give a shout out about?
I think maybe because we have some slides standing here ready. Maybe I should just go through some of them just to round up on some of the things we've discussed here, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. Yeah. we talked a bit about old school engagement model of associations, right? Which is very much thinking in terms of events and being events led, and where basically, this is literally how my social media and email engagement as director of marketing of an association looked like. Engagement was really low throughout the year, like a flat line, and then a couple of days throughout the year there was peaks of engagement when the event took place. Still, a lot of the knowledge and connections that are shared at that annual in-person event is not available to the rest of your member community because they are not there, right? So there's a lot of valuable knowledge and potential connections that they are missing out on, that you're not offering to actually often very large percentage of your membership who are not attending your in-person event. So that's a waste of opportunity. And actually, often it's the one time of the year when your members are consuming their membership fee. They're paying almost for the event. But actually, as we have said, as an association, you're not in the events industry, you're in the community building industry. The events have a purpose outside of the event itself. So current model, let's see if, yes, this works still. Current model, online events during COVID. Mostly, right? We went to online events and webinars. Zoom fatigue is real, as we see. Less and less people are attending these online events. There's still spikes, right? Because in between those events, there's not a lot of engagement going on and not a lot of interaction going on. So that's going down. And if you continue that model, luckily in-person events are coming back now. But then, in the long run, it will also decrease attendance for your annual event. So in the long run, your engagement is going down as an organization. Like I said, challenge of online events is creating these sustainable connections and continuing the conversations in between and after these events. And connections are actually elsewhere, outside of your organization, often on LinkedIn or through email, they are continued. But again, if your core business is facilitating these connections and community building, then you should facilitate that as an association. So what would a new or current or community-led engagement look like? It's waves instead of peaks, right? Because in the online world, we're continuously connected. Like you create a virtual engagement, continuous engagement layer around your events. And engagement peaks or engagement or community experiences that are engagement peaks in this community-led model are in-person events, like a networking event or a chapter event. But they could also be online asynchronous community experience, like an ideation challenge and online discussions, right? Where discussions are continued in between events, leading to a co-creation project, which could be a mix of in-person and online in a central space, an expert webinar certification course we touched on. That can be for a large part be done online. In the long run, increasing your engagement as an organization and increasing the participation in your annual event. The last thing I want to show is this one. And this is actually, I think, at the core of why online communities are so relevant for associations. This is identified as the 4 core tasks of an association: advocacy, addressing individual member needs, strengthening connections, and enhancing collective goals. And all these 4 core tasks that are contributing to your mission, which is central at an association's organization, are enhanced by owned online community, because you're broadening your advocacy efforts, because you're bringing more stakeholders, internal and external stakeholders on board to jointly collaborate towards your advocacy efforts. You're addressing individual goals and needs of members. You're listening to your members. You have short feedback loops, but also by having the data, you are actually offering relevant communications and addressing those individual needs, because you know their needs based on their behavior and you ask it in your onboarding. If a new member joins your organization and you can ask them, why are you joining our organization? What are topics of you would like to learn more about? You can immediately address those by connecting them with the right resources, right content, and right people within your organization the minute they join your organization, your association. Strengthening connections between your members, right? Biggest value you I think offer as an association is your ability to connect your members, and you're strengthening that with an online community and enhancing the collective goals. So you're continuously contributing to the goals that you have set as an association. But moreover, you might be adding goals bottom up, right? Your association might say, well, actually, I have a need for this in my daily work. How are you doing this elsewhere around the world? Let's jointly create a best practice framework for this And by doing so, you're actually increasing those collective goals and enhancing them that way. So at its core, they are contributing to all these 4 core tasks of an association, which all result into bigger impact towards your mission.
I can these 4 definitely resonate with me from other experiences that I've had. I love the visualization of it. It makes it very easy to remember, very easy to kind of keep in mind.
All right. No, I'm glad that resonates.
Yeah.
And I've actually forgot to mention you and to thank you as a contributor to the compendium, because thanks for your feedback. And I'm using your definition of online communities for public affairs, right? That you created in there, which is very relevant for associations as well.
Yeah. No. Thank you so much. I was honored to be included in the listing there. So I think we're a little bit over time, but it's been an amazing conversation. We could come back and really delve into some of these, deeper issues in time. And I hope you will come back on the show to maybe have some further conversations about these in the year ahead.
Sure.
In the meantime, I wish you all the best with the compendium. I'm sure it's going to be a tremendously impactful publication for associations and events management organizations. They need to download and read this today. I've got the link again down here in the crawler, and it's also up in the chat. Mathijs, any parting thoughts? Anything you'd like to say in closing?
Well, I think the main goal here is, and I think you started by saying that, is unleashing the full power of communities with a purpose. And it sounds a bit like, this is like this, but to be honest, this is in its core why I do this, and why I think it's so relevant. Because and actually, with the communities at Open Social, we are showing increased impact of the United Nations and Greenpeace, where the United Nations are working to Sustainable Development Goals, where Greenpeace is doing more campaigning towards their environmental causes. So, I really feel that this is highly relevant for associations facing the challenges we discussed today, and I hope this is giving some food for thought on that. And again, thanks again for having me.
Oh, thank you, Mathijs. It's always enjoyable to have conversations with you. The first of many more. I think this is going to finish us up for the day. For those of you who tuned in for the live stream, thank you so much for your interactions, for your questions, for tuning in to see what's here. I try to respond to everybody who comes onto the stream, and I do monitor for questions afterwards too. So the additional comments, if you're catching this on the replay, please jump in with anything that may be on your mind from this conversation. Please go and download the compendium. I think it's a tremendous resource for anybody that's engaged in community building in associations or events management, or even beyond. Just great advice overall. And again, I invite you to join me tomorrow at 11 a.m. U.S. Central Time to the conversation with Yulan Scholars from CheckStep. It's going to be an amazing discussion about AI-assisted tools for moderating your community and other kinds of platforms. So with that said, Mathijs, thank you again so much. Really appreciated the time and interaction today.
Thank you, Todd.
And thank you, everybody. We'll see you again tomorrow.